Good evening, I'm David Common, and this is The National.
The path to peace begins right here, on this ancient soil.
Donald Trump calls on Muslim nations to lead the fight against extremists.
Drive them out.
But what he didn't say in Saudi Arabia is a big deal too. A terrifying lesson from BC about safety around wildlife. Plus, the coins that prove to be kryptonite to the Canadian Mint.
The Mint is on, the hook.
And a Sunday talk on this week's wild ride in Washington. Are Republicans starting to jump off the Trump train? Donald Trump ran for office on a promise to ban Muslims from entering the U.S. He often associates Islam with terrorism. And yet today in Saudi Arabia, he gave a speech to leaders of dozens of Muslim countries. For a U.S. president in search of a scandal-free day, maybe not the ideal scenario. But this is Riyadh, not Washington. Ellen Morrow has more on Trump's message and the signal it sends.
Seated sternly behind a desk, Donald Trump struck a familiar pose before delivering a call to action.
The nations of the Middle East cannot wait for American power to crush this enemy for them. A better future is only possible if your nations drive out the terrorists and drive out the extremists. Drive them out.
More than 40 leaders traveled to the Saudi capital from around the Muslim world to hear from the man who, as a candidate, had this to say about their religion.
I think Islam hates us.
The message was different from President Trump.
This is not a battle between different faiths. This is a battle between barbaric criminals who seek to obliterate human life and decent people.
He may have tempered his tone on Islam, but on Iran, he was as tough as ever, accusing the Shia-led country of being a state sponsor of terror. Harsh words for Iran, a welcome message for his Sunni Muslim hosts. So too his delicate dance around Saudi Arabia's dismal human rights record.
We are not here to lecture. We are not here to tell other people how to live, what to do. Instead, we are here to offer partnership.
A strategy Trump described as principled realism. After the speech, he was on hand for the flashy opening ceremony of a new center for monitoring and combating extremism.
The America First version was on full display here. Arms sales, investment in infrastructure, reestablishing a security alliance, and no discussion at all about democracy and human rights.
But Trump's team couldn't avoid his political problems at home. Questions about the Russia investigation and his actions surrounding it have followed Trump on this trip. And awaiting him when he gets back is the public and potentially very damaging testimony of James Comey, the FBI director Trump fired. That's expected to happen after Memorial Day. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Washington.
Well, Trump had some time today to ignore the cyclone of controversy surrounding his administration. His vice president did not. Mike Pence took to the podium for a commencement ceremony at Notre Dame University in his home state of Indiana. And before his address could even begin, dozens of students and their families filed out in protest. The U.S. vice president did not acknowledge the walkout. In his address, he attacked political correctness on campus, which he called a suppression of free speech. The U.S. is condemning yet another missile test by North Korea.
The pathway of continuing their nuclear arms program is not a pathway to security.
The missile is reported to have flown about 500 kilometers over the Sea of Japan before falling into the water. American officials say it had a shorter range than those used in the regime's last 3 tests. The UN Security Council will discuss the launch behind closed doors on Tuesday at the request of the U.S., South Korea, and Japan. Mount Everest has claimed 3 lives this weekend, including an American climber who survived a disaster there just 2 years ago. Roland Yearwood was back at Everest for the first time since the deadly earthquake there in 2015. He and 2 other climbers from Slovakia and Australia died near the summit. A fourth climber from India is missing in bad weather. And mountaineers on Everest have confirmed the famous Hillary Step is gone. The steep, rocky outcrop was named for Sir Edmund Hillary, who, along with Tenzing Norgay, was the first to reach the top of Everest in 1953. It was the last challenge before the summit. Experts say it likely collapsed during that 2015 Nepal earthquake. Sea lions are a regular sight off Canada's west coast. People are accustomed to them popping out of the water for a look around like curious neighbors. But a shocking video has some rethinking that relationship. And as Mira Baines tells us, it's a good reminder that wild animals are wild.
Michael Fujiwara's video is getting worldwide attention.
It went viral just overnight, like 1 million+ views.
Fujiwara was recording a large male sea lion at Richmond Steveston Wharf yesterday evening.
Huge crowds just started gathering around me, and a young girl came along with their family, and they started feeding the animal, just breadcrumbs, and they were getting a little too close to the animal.
For a while, all was well, as the girl, who looked 6 or 7, stood right at the water's edge. Suddenly, the sea lion snapped at her, and then a few moments later, this.
He's like, I'm bigger than you. Oh my God.
Instantly, a man jumped in. It's believed he was with the girl's group. Then, as quickly as it started, it was over. The girl and her family left the wharf.
There were no injuries or anything, everything was good, but everyone was pretty shocked.
Today, this sign went up at the wharf. Feeding sea lions has become a big problem. They hang around hoping for scraps from boats and from visitors. The head of the Harbor Authority hopes the video will serve as a warning.
Now we finally have something out there that's going to grab people's attention and show them exactly why they shouldn't be behaving like this.
It's rare, but sea lions do occasionally attack, usually when people get too close. In most cases, experts say the animals aren't the problem.
You should not think these are just characters out of a Disney movie. They're not pets. They're wild animals. They've got teeth, they can bite, and even unintentionally you can get bitten. So you want to keep your distance from them.
He says people would never let their children feed a bear, and the same should go for a sea lion. Mira Baines, CBC News, Richmond.
There were troubling reminders this week that homophobia is still rife in professional sports. Blue Jays outfielder Kevin Pillar and Ryan Getzlaf of the Anaheim Ducks were both caught using offensive slurs. The two incidents received very different responses, and now the NHL is being called out for not taking enough disciplinary action. Ali Chiasson with that story.
Watch this battle between Mike Fisher and Kevin Bieksa for space.
Game 4 of the playoff series between the Anaheim Ducks and the Nashville Predators was a nasty one.
That was accidentally on purpose.
And it was full of hard hits.
Up into the corner, go to the bench. Solid hit from Watson. He's got nose plugs.
Then Ducks captain Ryan Getzlaf struck out, not with a body check, but what appeared to be a homophobic slur. Getzlaf apologized, but seemed to downplay the incident.
Fortunately enough, nobody heard it. If you can read lips, it's a little bit harder, and I apologize for that.
The league fined him $10,000, but did not suspend him. He was back on the ice last night. The day before Getzlaf made the slur, Toronto Blue Jays center fielder Kevin Pillar made a homophobic slur and was suspended by the team for 2 games.
You know, I have the ability to be made an example of, and I'm willing to accept that.
Last year, then Chicago Blackhawks player Andrew Shaw was fined and suspended for a game after using the same word as Pillar.
I want to apologize for my actions.
Some think Getzlaf is getting off lightly because he's a star player.
I don't think that is doing enough to curb it. I think the NHL had an opportunity to step up.
Brock McGillis came out after playing in the OHL.
I thought being gay was wrong. I thought it was bad. And that was all based off the language I heard. Language I heard in locker rooms, language I heard on the ice.
He now promotes inclusivity in sports and says kids need to learn it early.
We have to program at tyke, at novice, at the younger ages, so then they grow up thinking this is wrong. So that gay kid in the room feel safe.
The incident with Getzlaf probably won't get much attention at tomorrow night's game in Nashville. The Ducks have to win or else be eliminated. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Coming up, you saw former junior hockey player Brock McGillis in Ali's piece. Wendy Mesley talked with him about homophobia in the hockey world.
The culture of a dressing room is there's words used that are demeaning towards the LGBTQ community.
A feature interview later in the program. Team Canada couldn't pull off a gold medal finish at the Men's World Hockey Championships today, but there was no shortage of excitement.
Trying to feed that back in front. Time winding down here in overtime.
The game against Sweden was decided in a shootout, final score 2-1. Canada was trying to win its third championship in a row. Silver is also at the center of this next story, silver coins, not medals. For years, the Royal Canadian Mint has released a series of collector coins featuring images of superheroes, cartoon characters, even dinosaurs. But as Hannah Thibodeau reports, a major miscalculation has left some buyers wanting their money back.
In 2011, the Royal Canadian Mint started to produce coins that had a wide range of images on them, including Prince William and Kate, Superman, Tyrannosaurus Rex, even the Starship Enterprise. The Mint hoped these new collectibles would introduce people to a low-risk way to buy silver coins. The cost? $20, no tax. It worked. Hundreds of thousands of collectors and investors bought them. 4.2 million have been struck to date.
And the intent was that hopefully these would be bought for souvenirs and kept.
But since the beginning of the program, the price of silver has slumped, falling almost 2/3 since its peak in 2011. The silver in each $20 coin is now worth less than $6 Canadian. So people have been returning the coins in droves, and the Mint is required to refund the full $20 because the $20 value is stamped on the face of the coin.
Which is basically a money-back guarantee without an expiry. I know people that were buying 10 to 20 of these on the assumption that, if the coin ever took off or silver ballooned, there's no downside because at the end of the day they can always cash them back in.
The Mint's 2016 annual report had to be delayed for months because of revised accounting for the coins being returned. The miscalculation from the collectibles was a part of the reason that the Mint's profits dropped by almost $17 million.
When customers or the public are returning them now for face value, then the Mint is on the hook for that $20 face value.
After the big hit to its balance sheet, the Mint canceled this collectible series. Now it's producing coins like those commemorating Canada's 150th birthday that cost $59.95, but the face value is just $1. Hannah Thibodeau, CBC News, Ottawa.
For nearly 150 years, it's been called the greatest show on earth. But after tonight, there is one less circus to run off and join. The Ringling Brothers put on their final sold-out performance tonight after years of dwindling interest and animal rights controversies. Stephen D'Souza has our story.
Welcome to the greatest show on earth!
The daring, the spectacle. For nearly a century and a half, the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus has held a special place in the American imagination. Now the big top comes down for good. For performers, the reality is hard to accept.
It's like to wake up from a dream. I couldn't believe it when they said, I still don't believe it.
Davis Vassallo is a fourth-generation performer. Like many, he performed around the world, but reaching Ringling Brothers was always the goal. 3 generations of Ahmed Tunizai's family have been in the business.
Well, it's sad, it's sadness that the Ringling is coming to an end because of the history and the tradition that it means for us, for circus people.
Don't support the circus!
But in recent years, controversies over the handling of animals took away some of the magic. Elephants were taken out of the show last year. That loss hurt already declining ticket sales.
I think we just tend to take for granted as a society things that just are.
Jonathan Lee Iverson was the company's first black ringmaster, now the last. He says while some fans turn away, you can't underestimate the impact the circus has, like on one mother and son he met in Florida.
She said, he's autistic. She said for 4 years of his life, his first 4 years, he never spoke a word, nothing. And then we brought him to Ringling Brothers, and he hasn't shut up since. You can kind of take for granted yourself as a participant in this great entity that, you know, we're just sawdust and cotton candy, but you're selling much more. You're selling inspiration.
Tonight, the performers say goodbye to the audience and to the animals, most of whom will end up in sanctuaries. But most importantly, they say goodbye to each other. Living together on the road in close quarters, they've created a family. Performers marry one another, raise their children to become part of the show. Now they go their separate ways, most to other shows in America or Europe.
I'm going to leave my family, and how you feel when you leave your family. And that's the most sad part of it.
At the end, Iverson will say the final words in Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey history. He says he'll try not to break down.
You know, those final words will be as they always are. May all your days be circus days.
And he says in the circus, they don't really say goodbye. They say, we'll see you down the road. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, New York.
Now here's another spectacle, 5 stories high and taking over the city of Montreal as part of the city's 375th birthday bash. Giant marionettes took over parts of downtown Montreal this weekend. Each creation is operated with the help of a 30-person team pulling strings from the top of a crane. A street performance troupe from France are the brains behind the puppets. It's the first time they've strutted their stuff in a Canadian city. Coming up, Susan Ormiston has more on Donald Trump on the next stop of his first overseas trip as president.
You can't just sit back and play with your own little world. There are other worlds out there. Lots of them. And you can't just ignore them or brush them aside. You see, the world you know is really made up of lots of other worlds, and all of them have their own problems, which, in fact, become your problems. And worlds aren't made up simply of problems. Good things happen, exciting things, and they all affect you. The thing is to understand what's happening. And to understand, you have to have a complete and comprehensive view of matters. And where to get this information? It's easy. The national news, nightly, on CBC Television. So welcome other worlds into your life. It's almost fun. The national news.
5 nights a week in the national newsroom of CBC Television, the stories come in from all parts of the world to be interpreted and prepared for use on The National. The facts are checked and the backgrounds gathered. On-the-spot reports are collected. Then the films and the tapes are evaluated and edited, readied for the air. CBC's correspondents in all corners of the world report and interpret the news. Wherever things are happening, you'll get the complete information right here on CBC Television.
I'm Warren Davis. Those are just some of the things that go into The National. Join me.
From here, each day at 1 o'clock, Canada is given the exact time. 60 Canadian radio stations relay the signal to the nation.
The CBC brings you the Dominion Observatory official time signal. The beginning of the long dash, which follows 10 seconds of silence, will indicate exactly 1 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. Eastern Daylight Time.
After a warm welcome in Saudi Arabia, Donald Trump heads to Israel next. He's long signaled bold action for the region, pledging to move the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem and tasking his son-in-law with bringing peace to the Middle East. Israel's prime minister proclaimed no greater supporter than Donald Trump. But as Susan Ormiston explains, as with many other things with Trump, this is a region divided.
For a U.S. president who champions walls.
Walls work. Just ask Israel.
Donald Trump will try to straddle them, even while on the other side of those walls in Bethlehem, his words are mocked. The art on this wall, why is it here?
The question is, why the wall is here?
Faris Eslini is a Palestinian artist who's worked close to the separation wall for years. When you saw that wall in front of you every morning, just from over here, how did it make you feel?
It's easy answer, to feel like big stone in your chest.
Like a pressure?
For sure, you can't breathe. You can't think.
He calls it a big jail. The walls were built 14 years ago by Israelis to prevent attacks by Palestinian suicide bombers, but they've become permanent barriers. Eslini's protest is Muhammad Ali, standing on top of a wall, fighting back.
You think about Muhammad Ali, he's a strong one, he's our hero.
This conflicted place, with its holy Church of the Nativity, is part of President Trump's whirlwind trip here. He'll come to Bethlehem to meet with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. Trump is going to be here in Bethlehem on Tuesday. Will you go and see him?
For sure, no. Why I want to see him? Because to make another wall?
But in Jerusalem, more optimism. Trump will meet the Israeli Prime Minister and visit the Western Wall in the Old City, a first for any sitting U.S. president. In Israeli settlements like Beit El, Jewish settlers believe Trump could be a powerful advocate.
The American ambassador to Israel, David
Chaim Silberstein shows us an educational center funded by the newly installed U.S. ambassador David Friedman.
This is the first time that the Jews living in the biblical heartland feel they have an advocate for their cause in the American administration, and that is very comforting.
Trump himself donated $10,000 to the cause in the past.
I wish he would give us another check, but if he doesn't give us a check, at least recognize our right to be here.
But Silberstein has concerns.
We feel that the Arab pressure has borne some fruit, and we feel that President Trump is a little bit more cautious than he was in the beginning.
Tonight, Jerusalem begins to celebrate 50 years as a united city, even as Palestinians still claim East Jerusalem as their capital. Tomorrow, Donald Trump wades into that 50 years of intractable conflict, and with each side vying for his leverage, straddling these ancient walls will be a big test. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Up next, the Sunday Talk. Did Donald Trump have his worst week as president, and has it hurt his popularity? Stay with us.
In this era of rapid transportation, the television cameraman is by no means earthbound. Aerial film can often give a completely new perspective to a particular story.
We'll be flying up over the river towards Sorel, in that area. We should be gone about a half an hour. I've got to film back in a hurry, so I'll have to play it pretty fast.
Okay, well, that's fine. And South Cloud, Montreal, ETC, and good for sec to destination.
Good. Well, we'll get underway.
The rapid growth of Montreal is one example. With the skyline changing almost daily as new buildings appear, it is necessary to maintain a completely up-to-date stock of aerial footage of familiar scenes.
The site of a most unusual city was picked.
way back when the new world first began. You can't imagine just how many wonderful things were put together, but I've been there and I can. They chose the shores of the mighty St. Lawrence so they'd have a river running by. In the background they added a mountain to paint a picture against.
And where does all the film go? A lot of it is fed each day through a closed-circuit hookup to the network headquarters in Toronto.
Yeah, we're all ready to go. We'll send you a little bit of tone. That's at -8. Is that all right with you? Okay.
In this way, viewers across the country get an opportunity to see events that are happening in Montreal. To fly this film from city to city would waste many hours. But through this closed-circuit hookup, items can be exchanged in minutes with points across the country, and in many cases with the CBS and NBC networks in the United States.
Expo has welcomed visitors from many far-flung places in the world, most recently from the state of Hawaii.
Add to this a syndication film service operated by the CBC, which ships film to subscribers around the globe. And it is evident how much CBC News does to put Canadian events in perspective in foreign lands. The film exchange goes both ways. While an item is being fed to Toronto, a studio in Quebec City is providing a report by a correspondent for use in the local program. This is registered on videotape to be played back when the newscast goes on the air.
Time now for the Sunday Talk, and we're asking how much trouble is Donald Trump in after what's being called his worst week yet as president. First, the report of a James Comey memo. Trump allegedly told the then FBI director to call off an investigation into the National Security Advisor's ties to Russia.
They are deeply troubling. They raise very serious questions.
Next, the Justice Department appointed a special counsel to lead the Russia probe.
Well, I respect the move, but the entire thing has been a witch hunt.
Then, as Trump left on his first foreign trip, two more damaging reports. One said he allegedly told the Russian foreign minister that firing Comey, quote, took the pressure off. The other said someone inside the White House, close to the president, is being investigated as a person of interest.
No politician in history has been treated worse or more unfairly.
Now, some Republican lawmakers who have supported Trump are going silent.
We've tried tonight to get Republicans to come out and talk to us, and there are not Republicans willing to go on camera tonight.
Others are showing their frustration.
I think it would be helpful to have less drama emanating from the White House.
And a new poll suggests a slide in Trump's approval rating among Republican voters. Till now, most Republican lawmakers have stood behind Trump, hoping to make progress on their agenda after 8 years of a Democratic presidency. So will that support continue or collapse? Let's get right to it with our panelists. Tasha Carradine is a columnist with iPolitics and a talk radio host in Toronto. Stephen Marsh is an author and writer with Esquire magazine. And Lincoln Anthony Blades writes about U.S. politics for Teen Vogue and Rolling Stone. First question will go to Tasha. Does this week change anything?
I think it cements in many people's minds what they already thought, which is that Donald Trump is not fit to be president, and that course is going to continue no matter what happens. I think, though, that the cracks you were mentioning in your introduction are starting to show because you're seeing loyalists, people in the punditocracy, and Coulter has gone on record saying maybe the Trump haters were right. You're seeing a slide in the polls, but I think there's still a core base of Trump supporters who are tuning this out, and that's the same reason they elected Donald Trump, is that they think it is a conspiracy or the media is against him, and I think they are going to stay loyal. Whether that is enough, though, to keep other support in Congress and among lawmakers themselves is a question.
Because, Lincoln, let's talk about it. I mean, you hear this word impeachment being thrown out there, but the fact of the matter is that most GOP senators and congressmen are firmly behind their president, and so is a good chunk of the registered Republicans. Does this change anything?
I don't think it changes anything as much as it should. And I think that that's the big conversation that we should be having. With Donald Trump, you have a unique presidency, and you had a unique candidacy. Right. And when you look at this, I think that a lot of times we tend to forget that this Russia scandal is not a post-election scandal. It's a pre-election scandal. He got elected with this being hung over his head. So the idea that this is going to be a big change, I don't think that that's necessarily going to happen.
Yeah, but the actual details are now coming out. Steve,
well, I mean, that's exactly right. Like in any ordinary, normal conception of politics that we've had for 50 years, since the advent of television, this was the worst week in the history of presidential politics. I mean, the ISIS spy, releasing information about an Israeli spy in ISIS to the Russian government.
Yeah, the Israeli information.
I mean, that alone, in any other context, would have been a total disaster. But that was one of, 20 stories like that this week? But the problem is, none of this really seems to matter. And the other thing that's even scarier is that as things get worse, as things start to decline, the farther it goes into the insanity, and the more he survives, the more he can survive further insanity.
That was like his campaign, though.
Yes,
and the
exactly.
amount of things that he said that on the record, insulting to different groups, whether it was Black Americans, whether it was women. I mean, he went on, and this didn't seem to dent his popularity. And I take your point, Lincoln. I think that the issue of Russia is particularly seen as some kind of nebulous thing, especially by voters. Voters in the American Midwest or in the hinterland, so to speak, who don't have jobs, who are looking to him to relaunch the economy. They don't care about that. They think it's a distraction.
So I want to clarify something. So you said that you think that this was one of the worst weeks in politics. Yeah. But you also said that it feels like nothing seems to matter. So then what's the basis for this being the worst week? How do we base that?
You mean relative to?
Yeah, I would say that in any other presidency, if the president fired the head of the FBI who was investigating him for treason, that would be considered that would be the end of the career, and it would just simply be a mop-up operation by everyone afterwards. Yeah. But the fact that he's done that, and then a week later, Ivanka is being given donations by foreign governments of $100 million, he clearly doesn't even care. He's just...
her organization is for women entrepreneurs.
Yes, I'm sorry. But this process whereby he just goes crazier, and then he still is able to monetize the presidency after the fact, this is what's so terrifying. And I mean, I think it points to the fact that the politics we're dealing with here they're just not the politics of policy. They're politics of essentially racial identification, right? So it's tribalism.
So is that what we've got going on, that there really is just this great division in America and the divided states will continue?
So that's part of the polarization. And this is part of the discussion that we've been having a long time, because we want to have bipartisan politics. We want to have people being able to cross the lines. And the problem is that we are in a time where dehumanization is on the ballot.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
What that means is that I can't cross the line to speak to you and have a real conversation with you when I feel like my humanity is at risk by your policy. See, me and you can have a discussion about how can we drop house prices in Toronto. That's fine. We can talk about that. Yeah. But if you want to have a discussion on whether or not I deserve civil rights, and that's your policy position, we can't traverse that gap with a simple conversation about politics.
But I think it goes even further. It's not simple racial identity. I think it's also, you're seeing this around the world, is a rejection of the political class writ large and political elites. And you've seen it in Britain, you've seen it in the United States. You saw it to a degree in France, even though Le Pen did not win. But the winner was someone who founded his own political movement just a year before, Macron. And you're seeing it even in Quebec, interestingly enough, polls showing that the established parties are not doing as well to the benefit of the not established parties. And that anti-elitism, Trump incarnates that for good or ill. And that is something all politicians have to pay attention to. Unfortunately, he brings a lot of other baggage with him in his anti-elitist position.
But see, I think the return to the ethnic question is actually essential, because we've seen this in our own country. When politics gets ethnically based, when it gets existentially based, then what happens is ordinary political questions, as you say, how to lower the house prices in Toronto, what are we going to do about the bank rate, or the FBI leader cannot be fired by the president of the United States. That all goes out the window. Instead, it's like, how are we going to survive as a people? What is the essence? What is the nature of our country? And that, there's no scandal is going to break that. No scandal is going to be big enough to challenge that that questioning in the heart of these parties.
Well, it depends what kind of scandal. This is why I don't think the Russia scandal is resonating. I don't think it's resonating with the people who exactly for that reason voted for Trump too on racial lines. That they're not going to care about Russia. What could resonate though is another type of scandal which goes to the issues of jobs, of employment. The fact that Jared Kushner, for example, is rumored to be, it's not clear whether he is the person under investigation close to Donald Trump, and Coulter said, I don't like this nepotism. I don't like this. That smacks of elitism to me. So attacking the very elitism for which Trump is supposed to stand against, if that starts to, I think, swirl around him, those kinds of things could resonate with the average American.
Let's use that to kind of launch off to a talk about what's happened over the course of this weekend. Donald Trump, first foreign visit. He's been in Saudi Arabia, done this speech before, not just Saudi Arabian leaders, but the leaders of all the Gulf states in many ways. What does that say after a campaign in which he said so much about Muslims and Islam?
Well, his message actually that he delivered in Saudi Arabia was that the Muslim world itself has to take on extremists, and that is their responsibility. He fingered Iran. He pointed the finger at Iran for being one of the greater evil actors, so to speak, in the region. But I think that what's going to hurt him eventually is if he doesn't deliver on what he promised. And he made some promises. Building the wall, for example.
Building the wall. Middle East peace.
Middle East peace, rebuilding the American heartland. If people don't have jobs when the midterms come along in 18 months, if people don't have jobs in 4 years, he's not going to be reelected.
You think that's the thing that matters?
I do think the economy is important.
You guys agree?
I don't agree at all.
I don't agree.
Yeah.
So first, just to go back to his speech, I think that this is part of the problem with Donald Trump, is that he, so when you look at the speech that he gave, it took out the words violent extremism, right? That was the word that he used. The words that he's supposed to use, the words that he's been saying that President Obama isn't strong enough to use, is Islamic terrorism. And now he's in Saudi Arabia, a place where he could actually look strong to his base and say the words Islamic terrorism, and he doesn't do it. Instead, he uses violent extremism, which is the word that President Obama's been using, the words that he's criticized him for. And the thing is that it shows that he doesn't have a loyalty to his base. His loyalty to his base is moment to moment. And I think that's the biggest problem.
Let's go back to that talk about jobs. What is it that he's measured by his base then?
I think what he's measured by his base is the ability to perform the things that he said he was going to do. There are people out there who want that wall. There's people out there who want to see them, because when you think of Make America Great Again, it is a very coded slang, it is a very coded statement, but you know what it means. And for some people who are historically oppressed, when you're talking about black people, when you're talking about people from the LGBTQIA+ community, when you're talking about women, when you're talking about women's rights, when you're talking about healthcare, when you're talking about all of these issues are issues that these groups have been historically marginalized. And what you're having is a man who is saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to make America that place when they knew their place. And the problem is that as long as he keeps that message up...
Is it that they know their place, or is it the America that you once knew? The one where you had greater power?
Because that America they once knew was the place where America...
they were told they could sit in the back of the bus.
Stephen.
I think we're all talking about this like it's the old days, where it's like, what policies is he going to implement? How is America going to change? And then how's the electorate going to hold him responsible? This is wrestling. What he needs is attention. That is how he ran his campaign, and it worked. He doesn't need to be liked. He doesn't need to be hated. What he needs is to suck all the oxygen out of the room. And it goes back to the Saudi Arabia performance, because just like in wrestling, they say one thing, and then no one holds a wrestler accountable for what they say a week later. Like it's just like it's all a performance, and everyone knows it's a performance.
I disagree with that.
So can I just add this one quick point?
Sure.
Because we keep talking about, is there been a sea change, right?
Yep.
Has there been a sea change amongst the politicians? I think one thing that we need to look at is this. What happens when Donald Trump does something that can be framed as presidential? What happens to these scandals? See, for me, I think that since Trump has come in office, America has been down for so long that anything looks like up to them. And what's going to happen is he does something presidential. If he bombs this country or does this, there's going to be a rush for people to say, hey, you know what? He is a presidential guy, and all of the Comey scandals, all this other stuff that we've been using against him is going to evaporate like that, and it's just going to be fake love being shown by fake people.
Listen, we're going to have to leave it there.
Okay.
Thanks so much. We're going to be talking about this a lot more, probably around this table in the weeks to come. We're going to be right back with this story.
I forced myself to be hyper-masculine and live the hockey lifestyle, so to speak.
Wendy Mesley's feature interview with a former junior hockey player on homophobia in the hockey world and its effect on him. Stay with us.
It was as if all of London was in love. 600,000 people filling the streets, come to share a special day. As they cheered every carriage, and as they listened quietly to the ceremony on the speakers,
I pronounce that they be man and wife together.
they were, quite simply, rejoicing.
Because I love these things. I love royal weddings and royal anything.
Yes, it's Britain, isn't it? It's Britain. We're here because we're English, we're British. This is a great day for us.
The crowd in front of me today has been absolutely marvellous. They've enjoyed themselves watching the procession, and they seem to have enjoyed it thoroughly.
It was a time to forget all the troubles, and anyone who tried to bring them up didn't have a chance.
For the country.
It's good for the country, yeah,
it's good
but...
for ordinary people like me who go to work every day.
Yeah,
and
but what about
thousands
people
and
that
millions
haven't
of
got
other
jobs?
people like us, all right?
What about people
It's
that
good
haven't
for
got
us.
jobs?
I enjoy it.
What about
That's all
fellas
there is
like
to
me
it.
as well? What about fellas like me?
It's just for the ordinary working people who go to work every day who've got a job. All right, we're lucky we've got a job.
Yeah, but
this
what about
is
the people that
marvellous.
haven't
This
got
is
a job?
England.
Not only the British thought it was marvelous, the Trudeau children watched from Canada House with their mother.
Well, I thought it was like a fairy tale. And like the trumpets and the band and the Prince Charles was the prince and Lady Diana was the princess and was very happy.
What did you think of Lady Diana?
I think she was very beautiful, and I'm glad that Prince Charles has picked her. He has made a very good choice.
Misha, what did you think of the whole thing?
I think the band was nice. I'm a musician myself, so I would think it's nice all the time. Lady Diana was nice, Charles was nice, the church was nice, the Queen was nice.
Not just the children, but all the world seemed captivated by the beautiful princess in her magnificent dress.
She looked beautiful. She had lovely frills around here, and she looked like a lemon colour, didn't it? Lemony cream. It wasn't wine. Lovely.
Even as they saw it, this London fashion house was copying it, frantically working from a sketch made the moment the bride appeared on television.
Ours is white, hers was ivory, more to cream. Secondly, really the important thing is we are not using pure silk, we're using artificial silk, and therefore it's a lot cheaper than Lady Diana's or Princess of Wales dress would be if one could buy it, which of course you can't.
Within hours, 3 copies of the dress will be in London stores. Within days, thousands. The wedding has obviously been a tremendous boost for the British fashion industry and for the British economy, and also, perhaps above all, even if only fleetingly, for a faltering British spirit. Eve Savory, CBC News, London.
As we discussed earlier in the program, 2 incidents this past week involving baseball's Kevin Pillar and hockey's Ryan Getzlaf have shown that homophobia in sport remains an issue. Former junior hockey player Brock McGillis recently came out publicly as gay, and now he's an LGBTQ advocate. Wendy Mesley spoke with him earlier this year about why language matters. Their conversation in a moment, but first, a little background.
Many openly gay athletes in professional sports.
The first openly gay athlete to play.
In 2013, Jason Collins came out near the end of his NBA career. Robbie Rogers talked about life on the soccer pitch.
It got to a point when I was 24, 25 that I was like, all right, I can't live this way.
The St. Louis Rams select Michael Sam.
And in 2014, the NFL had its Michael Sam moment.
This is a first. This is a first in the NFL.
But here in Canada, not a single NHL player has ever come out as LGBTQ. Now, though, a former NHL prospect has broken a barrier. Brock McGillis played in the Ontario Hockey League, the Canadian university system, and semi-professionally in Europe. Recently, he published an emotional coming-out letter. In it, he details how the culture of hockey made him feel he would never find acceptance, that he trusted no one, and felt so alone he didn't see the point in living. The reaction has been overwhelming. He's received over 10,000 messages of support. McGillis spends much of his time training hockey players on their way up, but now he also visits schools to raise awareness. Brock, nice to meet you. I recently sat down with Brock McGillis during a hockey practice at Varsity Arena in Toronto. So what was it like being gay as a hockey player?
It was probably the biggest struggle I've ever had. It was so difficult. It was, I lied. I lied to myself, I lied to the world, I lied to everyone in my life, and I was never happy.
Why did you assume you wouldn't be accepted?
Hockey is a very homophobic place. I mean, it's the culture of a dressing room is there's words used that are demeaning towards the LGBTQ community. There's words used that are demeaning towards women.
So here you are, you know you're gay, you're hearing all of this. What does that do to you to hear it and not say anything?
I suppressed it. I suppressed everything I felt. I suppressed everything I knew I was. And I would get angry at myself if I had any homosexual thoughts in general, like in my life. I couldn't think about men. I couldn't think about dating a man. I couldn't think about anything like that. I'd be angry with myself. I dated women. I forced myself to be hyper masculine and live the hockey lifestyle, so to speak.
You listened to this for years. What did it do to you?
I wanted to die. There was a number of times I thought about killing myself. There's, it crushed me. It crushed me. I hated hockey. I hated life. But it's all I knew. I was so deeply invested in it that I didn't know what else. I didn't know anything else. And I was like, I'm a hockey player, Brock McGillis, hockey player. It's just who I was. But there's a number of times I thought about taking my life.
Wow. So at what point, so you decided to start dating men secretly, and now you're out. How did that happen?
I was watching television one night, and I was watching a hockey game. I was going to school at Concordia at the time, and I saw Brendan Burke. Brendan had come out that night publicly and with the support of his father and his family.
He's the son of Brian Burke?
Yes, former GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and now he's the president of the Calgary Flames.
I think it's important that my story is told to people because there are a lot of gay athletes out there that deserve to know that there are safe environments where people are supportive of you regardless of your sexual orientation.
I reached out to him. The hockey world's very small, so I was fortunate I had mutual friends, and I got in contact with him through Facebook, and we started chatting, and I finally had somebody who understood me without judgment, without fear of outing me, without anything, and it was such a special bond because I think he felt like he had somebody who appreciated what he was going through at the same time, being in the hockey world and trying to be a trailblazer in it. And Brendan obviously passed away. 2 days before he died, we were talking on Facebook, and at the end of the conversation, he wrote to me, "I can't wait till you're out to your family like I am to mine." I just looked at that and I was so taken aback, I didn't know what to think. I'm like, why would he say that? And I think he knew how deep my struggle was and how bad I felt. And then he passed away and I was grieving alone. I was all alone. I had nobody in my life who knew that I was gay, let alone that somebody I'd become so close with in a short period of time passed away. And I told my brother. I came out to him after that.
How'd that go?
Didn't change a thing, and my brother was playing professional hockey. He hugged me, and our relationship was been the same, if not better, ever since.
Have you heard from anyone in the NHL? There's been efforts to try and be more aware on these things?
The Leafs have reached out. Brendan Shanahan, who's the president.
What have they said?
Brendan and I had a 30-minute phone conversation. He told me stories about language used that he didn't even realize could offend people, and how impactful and powerful it is, and how important of an issue this is, and how change needs to occur.
To date, you can correct me, but I don't think there's a single NHL player who has ever come out.
There isn't.
Is it possible there's nobody who's gay? I mean, I don't want to out anybody, but...
How could there not be? How can you have close to 800 people in a group, and I think the statistic is approximately 10% of the population is gay, and none of these 800 people, plus management and coaches and everyone else.
Do you have a message for any of them?
You will feel better, you will be happier, and you will be stronger when you learn to love yourself for who you are.
How optimistic are you? You've seen the pressures not to come out.
I think in our lifetime we will see gay hockey players in the NHL. I really do. I think that slowly there's a shift in society, and I think whether it's the current group that's there or the future group, if we can implement these programs and make people aware of their language and how it's affecting their teammates, the players they're playing against and everyone else, that'll shift.
So are you happier?
I am.
Yeah?
I am. I love being a gay man. I'm happy that I'm me. And I don't feel like I have to hide. I'm so happy.
Well, it's very brave of you to come out.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks so much for talking to me.
Coming up next, as talk of impeachment pops up in Washington, some hear echoes of Watergate.
We have direct evidence coming out of the mouth of the President of the United States that he not only condoned, but he directed these cover-up operations.
From Nixon to Clinton, a look back on congressional efforts to take down past presidents, next on The National. There's been talk this week about whether Donald Trump's presidency can overcome the recent storm of controversies. Some are wondering if he's headed towards impeachment. So before we go tonight, a look back at impeachment proceedings during the Clinton and Nixon presidencies.
America's agony is growing darker, going deeper, and dividing its people as only the Civil War did in the past. Richard Nixon is a shrunken president, a man clinging to a power that is dwindling daily.
I welcome this kind of examination because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
If the many allegations made to this date are true, then the burglars who broke into the headquarters of the Democratic National Committee after Watergate were in effect breaking into the home of every citizen of the United States.
Republican support for President Nixon on the House Judiciary Committee was clearly collapsing today.
That Richard Nixon has, beyond a reasonable doubt, committed impeachable offenses.
We have direct evidence coming out of the mouth of the President of the United States that he not only condoned, but he directed these cover-up operations.
At what point did President Nixon corruptly abuse the IRS?
I have never been a quitter, but as president, I must put the interests of America first. Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
He's ever seen him. There is the president waving goodbye, and you hear the applause.
Good evening. The President of the United States has been impeached.
In a series of 4 votes, the Republican-dominated House supported 2 articles of impeachment, alleging Clinton obstructed justice and lied under oath about his sexual affair with Monica Lewinsky.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
The Monica Lewinsky sex scandal dominated the U.S. political scene for 1 year and 1 month, precipitating the impeachment trial. That ended today in a matter of minutes. U.S. President William Jefferson Clinton was acquitted on 2 articles of impeachment.
Not guilty.
Aides said Clinton didn't even bother watching the historic votes. Afterwards, though, he made one more apology for his misconduct before appealing to everyone to move on.
This can be, and this must be, a time of reconciliation and renewal for America.
And that is The National for this Sunday night. I'm David Common. Thanks for watching.